Hey YouTube, this is Eddie's Tech Talk, and today we're going to take a look at the Maxtop Y13 smartwatch. Now if you're out there saying, Eddie, who is Maxtop and what is the Y13? Those are the same questions that I had, but Maxtop was more than happy to let me take a look at this device. So from what I can gather, Maxtop is just a Chinese company. They're selling these smartwatches out there. So that's essentially what's going on, but you can get this actually from Amazon. A lot of their competitors, you have to rely on a Chinese importer like Banggood, but here, straight up, just get it from Amazon. Nothing to worry about, no big deal there. So I do like that. It does retail for around 50 bucks, so you're not in a Garmin territory, you're not in a Fitbit territory here, but you do have some impressive features, so let's take a look at those, first starting with the outside of the device. So what we have here is this, we have our screen. There is no touch screen here, but there is this touch sensitive area. So we can go through, okay, I want to go through, see certain things, see certain data. And then if we want to get into something, you see it says long press, you long press that area. And then it gets you in here, okay, let's start, let's stop, and then let's hold to exit. So that's basically what you need to know to get around the watch. That's what we have going on there. Not a particularly thick watch, and it's actually fairly light, I would say, as we maybe try to focus that in here. So nothing crazy along the front, I would say, or the sides. If we go to the back, this is kind of where the bread is buttered, if you will. We have this black band with these quick release pins. So if you want to take it off and swap to another band to match something else, you certainly can. And Maxtop actually thought of that. Also in the box when you buy this is a set of blue bands, so that's really cool of Maxtop to do that, include another set of bands, so you can match this with, I would say, most things with the included bands here. We also have this heart rate monitor, and this is where it's going to try and get your heart rate, it's going to try and get your blood pressure, it's going to try and compute the calories right when you're exercising. It's going to say, okay, how high is this heart rate? How many calories is that? And try to compute that. And then we also have the charging port here, which I actually really like. If we bring over the charging cable, we can see, okay, it's going to go on here. We can pull. Things are pretty good here. The magnetic coupling here is pretty tight, and I like that. And it's not going to go on this way either. It's only going to go on one way, so it's pretty hard to break, pretty foolproof there. I really like that. My only concern, okay, well, if this cable breaks, where do I get another one? I'm not quite sure. So that's kind of a tour of the outside of the device. I'll put it on the wrist really quick here. Alright, so it's on the wrist here. I don't know where my wrist size is in comparison to the others, and but this is it. It's on the wrist. We got a nice tight fit. There's a ton of holes in the band, so if you want to go out just a little bit or in just a little bit, you can do so. So I think most people won't have any problem finding a band size that fits for them. I mean, this band goes out for the biggest of wrists and in for just about the smallest of wrists here. So I would say no big issue finding a way for it to fit your wrist. And it does fit comfortably on the wrist, really. I mean, for me, I think that it's no big deal from an ergonomic standpoint, and it just kind of blends in throughout the day, which I think is about the best thing you can say about a watch. I have a really bulky Garmin watch. That thing I can't wear because it does not blend in. It does not ever feel like I'm not wearing a watch on my wrist. This one, you get a lot closer to that. Okay, so now that we've been over the ergonomics of the device, kind of how it fits, how it looks, let's get into what you can do from the watch itself before we move over to the app. So here we have one watch face. There's several different watch faces. This one shows you the time, how close you are to your goal, and the date. If we move through here, we've got a summary page. I'm getting over a cold. I only put this on when I got home from work to generate some sample data, so don't be too rough on me here. But it shows you your steps, how close you are to the goal you set on the app, as well as the calories burned and how far you've traveled. Now this here, I suppose we should have done that when it was on the wrist. Let's put it back. This will try and compute your heart rate for you, and it will put it in this graph that it has here for you, which I think is really cool. You can look at your heart rate throughout the day and kind of see where it fluctuates, see where it goes. If you went for a run, you can see the spikes. So 76, 77 beats per minute, and we can see here this is actually what the notifications look like when they come in. It's not going to get an accurate reading right now because it's no longer on the wrist, but I would say that's a pretty accurate heart rate reading, and I would say that the heart rate readings have been actually pretty accurate since I've had the device. I've gone out exercising, We can see here, this is circling back to that notification. So if I'm on a walk, it'll say, hey, your heart rate's 102, 105, and I say, okay, that seems pretty normal to me. If I'm just resting on the couch, it'll give me a heart rate in the 60s, so that's about where it should be. I would say the heart rate monitor, and I, of course, don't use this for any sort of medical purposes or medical diagnosis, but for me, I would say the heart rate was pretty accurate. Now the blood pressure, that's another story. I didn't think that the blood pressure, it just uses these diodes again. I didn't think that the blood pressure was particularly accurate for me. So I actually went to the doctor during the time that I was testing this watch, and my blood pressure at the doctor was 118/68, which is in the normal range. When I measured it on here several different times, I got 129/86, 131/87, 112/75, and 121/81. So I'd say the systolic blood pressure, that's the first number, is actually pretty accurate. I would say in most cases it fell in, I would say, an acceptable range for the systolic blood pressure, but the diastolic blood pressure, that's the second number in this equation, right? So we have this fraction, systolic, diastolic. I'd say this diastolic blood pressure was pretty inaccurate. We had 86, 87, 75, and 81, when the actual one is 68. Now 75 I can buy, but if we're operating up in the 80s, I'm not quite sure how accurate that really is. So I would say it's good to put you in a general ballpark, but I think the heart rate was definitely more accurate for how far this watch can go. We also have, beyond that, we have sleep monitoring. So if you're wearing this, it'll measure your deep sleep and your light sleep. I'm not quite sure how accurate the deep and the light sleep are, just because I didn't take a sleeping test while I had this watch, but I can say that it for sure measured the time accurately. You know, if I was asleep for 7.5 hours, it said that I was asleep for 7.5 hours. The deep sleep, the light sleep, obviously I don't know. But I would say that it's pretty accurate too, and it measured the quality decently well. So I have nothing to complain about in terms of that metric. And it is cool, you can kind of see all that on the watch without the need to go to the app unless you really want to. Now stopwatch, that's here. You actually have to enable this in the app. It's not enabled by default. Generic stopwatch. We have sport. So if we long press to get into the sport, this is going to just time us. It's going to show us our calories burned. It's going to show us our heart rate and our step count. That's about all you get, but I would say for a watch that doesn't have GPS, I don't know what else it could give you. I think that's pretty solid amount of data there. You can pause that or exit. We're going to exit. And so that's about it for the watch. I like it. I liked it on my wrist, and I'd say I have to say what I was most impressed about that I wasn't expecting was the screen. The screen here was very impressive. It's super vibrant. I think the colors are pretty accurate. Now, I'm a colorblind guy, so you know, take that with what you will. But it's bright. You can read it outdoors. It's clear. The resolution is good. So in terms of just the watch and the ergonomics, pretty decent here. Let's head over to the app and see what we can do there. Okay guys, so once we're in the app, and it's called the H-Band app, it's actually used for a variety of smartwatches, not just this one. We get this nice graph here. I actually changed it. This is green. I don't think it's green when you load it up, but it tells you, okay, steps, how many hours you spent exercising, what's connected. If we go into more, that'll take us to things like the manual heart rate test you can initiate. It'll take you into a manual blood pressure test, and it will take you into the settings, which we'll go into. Those are actually pretty expansive. But if we click into sport, this will show us, okay, here's what your steps, here's a graph, here's how far you went, there's how many calories you burned. Now this little half-mile walk I did, I'd say is pretty spot on. It might have been a little shorter than a half mile, but it was mostly accurate. Maybe it was more like 0.35, 0.4 miles, but not too bad there. And it tells you the steps, it tells you the calories. Now, I did some independent testing. I did this watch in the exercise mode next to a Garmin watch with GPS capability. So I knew the Garmin was going to be more accurate, but I wanted to see just how far off this band was. And I'll tell you here. So this measured and then, okay, we're going to get some notification time. So it does vibrate, powerful vibration motor. But we're going to get 4.3 miles over here, 450 burned calories on the Maxtop. And on the Garmin, I got 4.55 miles and 415 calories. So there's no GPS here. I think that that's actually really impressive. I knew it wasn't going to be as accurate, but I thought that it was just about as accurate as you can ask something without GPS to be. I mean, we were in spitting distance of the mileage, and we were kind of close on the calories. So I don't have a lot to complain about with the step accuracy. It was actually more accurate than I thought. But in any case, in the app, we can see drilled down on any of these categories. You can see heart rate, same kind of deal. So a fair amount of data within the app. The only real issues I had is that it seemed like it kind of disconnected from pairing every so often. So it wasn't the greatest watch at giving me notifications all the time. It did work well most of the time, but not every time. But other than that, what else do we have in the app? We have running. So this actually uses your phone GPS movement, and then it'll track your smartwatch movement, so it'll just kind of be an amalgamation of all the exercise that you've done if you choose to track it this way in this app. If we go see, if you're in the cloud account, it'll show up there, but here it will show you your device and the battery that's remaining. Another strong point, I'm just kind of rolling them in here as I go through the app about the device. The battery life is insane on it. It has just massive, impressive battery life. I actually couldn't kill it. I tried really hard. I couldn't do it. Multi-day battery life with the Y13. Here you can change that steps goal. That's what shows up on the summary screen of the watch. How many hours of sleep you want to get. And then here you can change your units from imperial to metric. You can change the theme. So we have the default theme, just a different color scheme, or this theme, about the app, help, the We Run platform, that's a third party. But if we want to go into the device specific settings, this is where it gets pretty interesting. So it'll give you message notification. You can see phone call, SMS, WeChat if you're in the, or QQ if you're in the Chinese market, but also Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, WhatsApp. I mean, look at what we have here. And then other apps, it's just a catch-all, which I have on. So that works really well. We've seen the notification mode. We've seen that it works well when it is paired up. Alarm settings, you can set those as well, maybe? Oh, we can add one here. We can add an alarm, set the label, set it to repeat. So we're getting, with this particular device, pretty particular settings. Sedentary alarm, you can set when it goes on, so it's not going to wake you up at 3 in the morning. Hey, get up and move around, and it'll, how often. So and you can change these too. You can go, okay, how many minutes? I mean, down to the minute. So you're getting some pretty customizable thing, and then this will sync it to the device. So if it does not pair with your phone anymore, to my knowledge, at least as far as I could tell, if you sync the phone to the device, it syncs those settings over. So if you're not connected to the phone, it will still remind you that sedentary reminder when you say. Heart rate alert you could turn on. Turn wrist detection that we went over, that works really well. Private blood pressure mode, this will let me put in my blood pressure like as it's actually measured, and it will try and get a more accurate reading. I don't like turning that on just because I think that's kind of a cop-out. I want to see the kind of the raw data that it gives me. It should be able to predict those kinds of things, in my mind, a little more accurately without me having to put in a baseline for it. Screen on time, you can change how long you want that screen to be on before it dims, like we have seen, maybe. Yeah, there we go. So you can set it to whatever you would like. And then as we go through here, we just have, again, screen on time. You can turn on these things like what it detects when you're wearing it, automatic heart rate just on occasion, automatic blood pressure if you want that, find your phone, stopwatch feature. So I actually had to turn that on. So you can turn that on, and then obviously we saw that synced over earlier right in the menus there. Also, brightness, you can take a photo if you want, countdown timer, right? So there's quite a lot. And then settings of the main interface, these are the watch faces. So there's 5 styles of watch face. Let's see if that pushed over to this watch. Yeah, so here's another watch face. Let's get into them really quick. We'll bring that up. So we have this watch face. We have, let's sync this one over, another one. This is the one that I like, and this is the default one that comes when you have it. So that kind of provides you actually a little bit more information about the device when you're in the screen. So quite a lot of customization here. So my conclusions here with the Maxtop Y13 is that It's a little too sporadic at times, but I think that the build quality here is pretty strong. There's not a lot of nicks, not a lot of marks picked up through my time with the watch. I think that the screen's really good. It fits really well on the wrist. I've actually gotten compliments on this watch that it looks sleek, so that's nice too. And I think the heart rate's pretty accurate. I think the steps are fairly accurate. Not as accurate as I would like, because I'm really into the GPS and you know the pinpoint accuracy. But in terms of something without that, I do think it's pretty hard to beat something like this. So what do you guys think about this? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you like the Maxtop Y13 here? And I will see you guys in the next one.